I'm pleased to be able to say a few words about Helen's book from the industry perspective, because I've held a long-held belief that academic research has a lot to offer the shipping industry, an industry which I've worked in for 30 years through about 4 industry cycles, an industry that's not always aware of the impact it has on the societies it touches or the environment in which it operates. An industry that's not always receptive to the insight and new ideas that the academic world and indeed other industries can offer. And an industry which is trying to currently get to grips and recover from one of the worst recessions it's ever faced, an issue I'll return to in a few moments. Indeed, reading the book, Helen, brought back some very happy memories of the research I undertook in the late 70s, early 80s for my PhD, courtesy of the UK taxpayer, via the Social Science Research Council. Does it still exist these days? Although I was not as brave as Helen, preferring to conduct most of my research on dry land and in warm offices, I nevertheless put great emphasis on working closely with the shipping industry to prepare a thesis which applied industrial location theory to short-sea ship-owner decision-making. Based on a series of structured interviews with many fascinating entrepreneurs, some of them dead, from the ferry industry, and after having a very enjoyable viva with Alistair, it wasn't too tough, Alistair, you're very kind, I very soon came to the opinion that however hard you look for logic in the industry in which I've worked, there's no guarantee that you'll find it, and that stood me in good stead in the last 30 years. I've been asked to provide an industry perspective at today's launch. I've sought the views of a number of colleagues and ex-colleagues, all of whom, unlike me, had worked at sea in their early life. While reading Helen's book, it occurred to me that while it is increasingly common to find senior executives of the shipping industry who do not have any seawater in their blood, as recently as the early 90s, it was rare for someone of my background, which included 6 years in academia, to work in a senior executive role. In particular, I've spoken with a number of ex-colleagues at V-Ships, one of the world's largest independent ship management companies. It was founded in '84, grew rapidly. It's played a major role in what Helen refers to as the globalization of the maritime labour market, for good and for bad. Today, V-Ships manages about 30,000 seafarers, has a roster of 30,000 seafarers, about 50 nationalities at latest count, deployed in over 800 vessels of various types. In most cases, the crew complements are made up of at least 2, often 4 or more nationalities of seafarers, many more on cruise vessels. Traditionally, the company used European senior officers, lots of Italians, plus Indian and Filipino officers and ratings. In the last 15 years, the sources of supply are diversified to include the Ukraine and other former Soviet Union countries, including China. While all the chapters provide important perspective on and insight into arguably one of the shipping industry's most important stakeholder groups, the seafarers, 3 chapters I feel are of particular relevance. In Chapter 3, Helen provides a very useful account of why and how the maritime labour market for seafarers was globalised. She looks at the separation of country of ownership from flag of registration, the process of flagging out driven by ship owners seeking greater flexibility and lower costs, and how and why a ship owner selects a particular flag, and the rise of modern ship management, which saw the emergence of Univan, Denholm, now part of Anglo-Eastern, Akomaret, now part of V-Ships, Wallam, Columbia, Schulter, and a number of others. These companies enable traditional ship owners and new entrants to reorganize the way they work on an outside business model. A model that has not always been universally popular, but has nevertheless emerged to affect the day-to-day operation of a significant minority of the 50,000 or so ships deep sea trading currently in service. However, Chapter 3 doesn't make particularly comfortable reading, and it's not for the faint-hearted. I just take one quick quote. In many ways, the globalization of the industry, while bringing opportunities to would-be seafarers in developing countries, has brought an overall deterioration in the working and living conditions at sea. Seafarers are regarded somewhat as commodities rather than people. There is often little concern for their welfare, little commitment to their long-term futures, and very market-oriented approach to their recruitment, retention and training. In an environment where seafarers are recruited from countries where local employment possibilities are severely limited, many people are unwilling to complain about poor living and working conditions on board, and will only resort to appeals to trade unions in very extreme circumstances. They are a highly exploited workforce with limited muscle in terms of industrial relations and their employers. She concludes, the globalisation process has been driven by employers' desires to recruit the cheapest possible labour of the quality required in order to maximise competitive advantage. Now, as someone who's worked in a large ship management company for over 20 years, it would be very dishonest of me to deny that Helen paints an accurate picture in certain respects. I recall in the past being surprised to see that technical superintendents, they manage the interface between the shipboard management team and the shore-based operation, very much held sway when it came to deciding on the performance and career developments of masters and their fellow senior officers, and that simple solution to replace a seafarer when a problem arose was often followed despite the difficulties of finding a replacement. However, it's also true to say that for many ship owners and ship managers, competitive advantage in recent years has moved beyond the numbers, purely cost-minimising game. The reality of crew management today, certainly for V-ships and other large players, is that the seafarer has been treated more and more as a valued customer, a person who has a choice, a person who wants flexibility, an individual where greater emphasis is put on lifetime career development rather than a mix and match short-term approach. Arguably, and I believe that most of my ex-colleagues would accept the fact, it took far too long to change strategy. While with the worsening shortages of crew during the super cycle in the industry between 2003 and 2009, an important stimulant. Today the focus is on measures, financial and non-financial, to ensure crew retention as the basis for achieving sustained performance. By no means a new concept, but a critical one none the same. Certainly greater efforts have been made, especially with the challenges posed by rising fuel prices and the need to conserve energy, to ensure that shore-based commercial, technical and crewing teams are all aligned to provide more effective support to the shipboard management team. Techniques such as performing regular fleet health checks to test operational performance are helping in this regard. Now, I go as far as to say that chapters 5 and 6, which look at life and sea, should be compulsory reading, and I mean that, Helen. Perhaps as part of an induction programme for those who work in a shore-based job supporting the ships, but who never actually experience or even visit the coalface. Today, less than 30% of V-ships' shore-based staff have had any seagoing experience, when in the early 90s, when I joined the company, it was well over 50%. Now, these two chapters highlight the importance of hierarchy, the lack of privacy, the power and authority of the master, and the problems that this might cause, the influence of other seniors, the definition of workspaces and social spaces, and the dominance of work. I really like Helen's description of ships as institutionalised and complex social microcosms, as occupational workplaces and multinational living spaces, characterised by constant coming and goings. It's a hell of a mouthful, but it hits a number of different nails on the head. Many people, especially those who fit work into their social lives, but also those of us who live to work, would find it difficult to fit easily into life at sea. And we must all thank Helen for painting a clear and vivid picture based on her first-hand experiences. Her insight helps to explain why maintaining morale is such a difficult challenge, especially as the demands of the job increase, as regulatory and customer pressure, particularly from the oil majors, intensify. To conclude this short industry perspective, I'd just like to highlight 3 reasons why I believe the publication of this book is very timely indeed. Firstly, as already mentioned, the shipping industry is currently in the grips of a severe recession, largely but not solely of its own making, where many ship owners, particularly in the VLCC, that's the largest sector of the tanker market, for example, are well and truly in trouble mode, seeking ways to mitigate eye-watering losses and stave off bankruptcy. Also, many ship owners have little or no experience of managing a business to survive, while at the same time facing the challenges posed by increasing regulation, geopolitics and changing seaborne trading patterns, and notably rising fuel prices. Under these circumstances, it's all too easy to neglect investing in people ashore and afloat as a key ingredient to long-term business success. It is all too easy to neglect investment in training to enhance technical skills, leadership capabilities, and organisational effectiveness. Helen's book helps to shed light on just how important the human element is to a successful maritime adventure. During regular training courses for junior middle managers working for diverse companies from across the industry, I often stress that an owner can build a ship, the best ship at the best shipyard, with the smartest tech-based financing, have the luck to take delivery at the right time in the market cycle, and find the best charterer, class society and insurer. But without employing and managing an effective, well-motivated crew, the long-term return on investment will be severely limited, especially in these high-pressured and highly competitive times. The second reason why publication is very timely is that, as Helen points out a number of times, seafaring is a remote and largely hidden part of the shipping industry, except when tragedy strikes. During my times at V-Ship, I was directly involved in many unfortunate incidents involving crew, although two in particular highlighted the importance of seafarers and the pressures they face over and above the normal call of duty. December 2007, a Samsung-owned crane barge crashed into a V-Ship's managed Haby Spirit while fully laden off anchor off the west coast of Korea. The resultant oil spill of nearly 11,000 tons of crude from a single-hulled VLCC led to the arrest and imprisonment and detention of Captain Jaspreet Chalwa and Chief Officer Sayam Chetan for over 500 days. They were both charged for criminal negligence, despite the widely held view among experienced industry practitioners that their leadership after the cargo tanks had been punctured helped to limit the outflow to less than 5% of the cargo. Their eventual release was only down to the lobbying of various industry stakeholders, including the ITF, and various trading associations, including Intermanager and Intertanko. Happily, both seafarers are doing well, although Captain Chalwa, an ex-V-Ship cadet, decided not to return to full-time employment at sea. In February 2011, the hijacking by Somali pirates of the V-Ship's crew-managed Savina Kaylin only ended 11 months after the payment of a sizable ransom. During the intervening period, the 5 Italian and 17 Indian crew were subjected to sporadic torture over accusations of hiding bunkers on board, and also suffered food shortages. During both of these and other traumas, responsible ship owners and managers must go the proverbial extra mile to support the seafarer families. The third and final reason why the publication of Helen's book is timely is that it's arrived immediately ahead of the implementation of the ILO Maritime Labour Convention of 2006. Now, labelled as the industry's fourth regulatory pillar alongside SOLAS, MARPOL and STCW, and also termed the Consolidated Bill of Rights governing seafarer welfare, MLC 2006 is expected to have a big and positive impact on the treatment of seafarers, if it is embraced by ship owners and ship managers, and if it is policed effectively. The clock starts ticking, so to speak, this August. France and Greece are two member states of IMO to recently ratify the MLC in a process which took nearly 6.5 years. Covering a wide range of welfare issues, including accommodation, repatriation, terms and conditions of employment, complaints procedures and occupational health considerations, compliance will pose a serious challenge to those companies who have not put in place effective crew management systems and who have not ensured through internal audits that all welfare issues are being addressed. These challenges include guidelines governing equal pay for equal work within the same vessel. This will seek to address one of the issues which Helen raises in one chapter of her book. In summary, I'd like to thank Helen for giving me the opportunity to review her work. The book presents some important research which deserves widespread attention. I would ask Helen to return to the sea again in, say, 10 years' time to assess whether the long-awaited arrival of MLC 2006 has had beneficial effects on seafaring, which the majority of the shipping industry seek. I will, of course, be delighted to speak again in 11 years' time, Helen. I'll give you a year to complete the book about the next instalment. Perhaps the sun might even shine in Cardiff again. Thanks very much, guys.